So I'm gonna be talking more about Venezuela instead of this whole entire debacle with Mueller and everything, because that has just already been debunked so many times. So why do we even bother talking about it? What what I really want to talk about is, again, like I said before, Venezuela. The uprising apparently failed, and that is an unfortunate fact that we must accept. But it has um showed some cracks in the system, and especially in the administration of Nicolas Maduro. For one thing, we already saw that a few of these generals were actually not very decided to no longer support Nicolas Maduro and his grip on power. I mean, it's kind of I think this is mainly due to the opinions of some soldiers, because while the generals did get a lot of the privileges associated with being part of the Maduro regime, a lot of their soldiers didn't. In fact, they were kind of having a hard time as of late, trying to keep up with everything, especially with how Venezuela is right now. Now, normally, if you were in the military, you would at least have some sorts of privileges, especially for your family in something of a situation like Venezuela. But apparently, that's not the case, and I think that's actually what got many people to side with Juan Guaido at his uprising. Again, the uprising may have failed, but it has showed so many cracks in the system. Nicolas Maduro is obviously running scared. There were even reports that he was planning on trying to get on a plane to head to Cuba, but the Russians told him not to. I'm not sure if that story is true, but it wouldn't surprise me if it was. No, if Nicolas Maduro, the leader of the regime that's currently oppressing Venezuela, is willing to get on a plane, that shows his position of insecurity. And it obviously shows that his power base is diminishing. Yes, he still has some people from the upper class supporting him and some in the military, but they're slowly eroding, eventually hanging over to Juan Guaido's supporters. In fact, I've actually read a newspaper that said the head of the head of the Nicolas Maduro secret police actually decided to defect and join with Guaido. It's it's really funny when you think about that, because normally people in the secret police would try to stop dissenting voices, not join up with them. But apparently, with how bad the situation in Venezuela is, it's gone to that point. I honestly think that there is no turning back at this point, especially with the failed uprising that occurred last week. I think it's gonna eventually start into civil war. If not, it may just lead to a very big a bigger revolution that would heavily affect not just Caracas but everywhere in Venezuela. It's hard to determine at this point, but I would put it past anyone to actually lead this into civil war. I honestly wouldn't, and considering what the actions are of what happened during the uprising had occurred, that definitely shows. And I'm talking about specifically how many of the protesters were run over, how there were some gunshots in the capital. I even heard there were even some reports of gunshots near the Colombian-Venezuelan border. So I wouldn't put it past it to actually see Venezuela erupting into a civil war. I think it's inevitable at this point. But I also think that should such a thing happen, that the opposition would definitely be on equal ground with Maduro. Now, I say unequal ground with Maduro for a few reasons. One, they have the support of the populace. They have literally the huge masses of the population that could support Juan Guaido and his opposition-led government. So apparently, that getting that much manpower in the case of a civil war erupting would not be much of a problem. However, there is a downside to this. Much of these people, due to the lack of military training, or at the very least, as I know, lack of military training, it isn't going to be much of a substantial force. I mean, after all, Nicolas Maduro still has control of the military. These are the people with the equipment, the supplies, and the firepower necessary to stop any uprising. But while it remains possible for Juan Guaido and the opposition to actually win in the civil war, it would be an uphill battle, to say at the very least. So that's why and also number two, Juan Guaido has a lot of the international community support, but at the same time, so does Nicolas Maduro. He actually has so much support from countries like China and Russia and even Cuba that there are even some foreign troops. I think there were some either Russian or Chinese troops in the Venezuelan capital of Caracas, just to try to put down this uprising. Now again, this leads to the odds being evenly matched. But like I said before, with the issue of not a well-trained military, this is like Juan Guaido to actually consider the idea of supporting U.S. military intervention. Now, this has two three opposing ways of how this might happen. Number one, Juan Guaido, if he actually does get the approval of U.S. military intervention, would actually get the support of the Venezuelan people. The United States, and of course the Venezuelan opposition, would be seen as liberators, and Nicolas Maduro would be kicked out and probably sent to Havana. The other situation, should this occur, would be that, and this is a worst case scenario, this would actually prolong the civil war. It would be something akin to Syria. It wouldn't surprise me if it led to something like that. But then again, the situation in the Middle East is considerably more different than the situation in South America. But I wouldn't put it past should there be civil war to spread outside the borders of the country. So it may this U.S. intervention may actually be considered, or actually contribute to the length of the civil war that may occur. And number three, Juan Guaido may actually lose support as a result of this, because there has been so much propaganda as of late, ever since Hugo Chavez obtained power in 1999, where the United States imperialists are trying to come in, intervene in Venezuela, and take all their oil and that sort of thing. Basically, the typical foreigner power that just wants to take everything that they have. Now, this would actually be a possible narrative that Nicolas Maduro would likely reach. He would try to frame Juan Guaido as a puppet of the United States, and may actually say that, look, he's a traitor, and he's actually working for the United States. He doesn't want anything to do with Venezuela's security or prosperity. He wants it to be exploited by these foreign countries, and that's This is gonna be a very hard thing to sell. It really is. But for right now, Juan Guaido and Nicolas Maduro, they're both on even footing. Hopefully, and at this point, I would say at least 15%. There's a 15% chance, in my opinion, that civil war may not occur. And I hope that 15% will actually happen. But for right now, all we have to do, as Nicolas Maduro and Juan Guaido organize themselves into power structures to oppose one another, all we can do is wait. My name is Noah Meehan on the Arc of Truth. Please post your comments down below. I love to read them. Like this video, share it, and subscribe. See ya.
Almost heaven, West Virginia, Blue Ridge Mountains.